All right, let's get right into this because it's a story with a twist that honestly most people don't see coming. We've all been hearing for years now that generative AI is finally, the technology that's going to dethrone Google. But what if I told you the exact opposite is happening? What if this new challenger is actually making the old king stronger than ever?
I mean, for the last couple years, the tech world has been obsessed with this epic showdown, right? You've got Google, the undisputed champion of information, in one corner. And in the other, you've got ChatGPT, the brilliant, talkative challenger. The whole thing is framed as this massive war for the future of the web. But is it really a war at all?
You see, to really understand what's going on, you gotta stop thinking of them as direct competitors. It's better to see them as two different but connected parts of a system. Think of it like this. Google is the index. It's the most complete, ridiculously massive library catalog ever built. ChatGPT, on the other hand, is the interface. It's that genius conversationalist who can read anything in that library instantly and just tell you what it says. They do fundamentally different jobs.
Now, to really get a handle on this paradox, we have to take a quick step back and remember what made Google the king in the first place. I mean, how on earth did it manage to bring order to the absolute chaos of the early internet?
Well, it really boils down to a two-step process, but done on a scale that is just hard to wrap your head around. First, these little software bots, they call them crawlers, are just constantly roaming the web, discovering every page they can find. Then, step two, all that info gets organized into this colossal database, the search index. We're talking over 100 million gigabytes. It's like having an index card for every single word on every page of the internet.
But, just having a giant list of everything isn't enough. The real magic trick is figuring out which pages actually matter. And this image shows the problem perfectly. The web isn't a neat, orderly list. It's this tangled, messy, beautiful graph of interconnected links. So how do you rank what's important in a mess like that?
And the answer they came up with was pure genius. It's an analogy called the random surfer. Just imagine someone, a digital surfer, randomly clicking on links page after page forever. The pages that this surfer would land on most often, well, those are, by definition, the most important ones. They're the major hubs in the giant web graph.
But here's the really cool part. This random surfer isn't just a cute idea. It's a precise mathematical model. It's something called a Markov chain, where every web page is a state, and every link is a chance to move to a new state. This turned a messy, chaotic problem into an elegant, solvable equation.
And the solution to that big, fancy equation? It's called the stationary distribution. It's basically the long-term probability that a random surfer, after clicking for a very, very long time, will end up on any given page. And that final probability score, that is PageRank. That is the mathematical bedrock of Google's authority over the web.
Okay, so that's the king and his foundation of power. Now, what about the so-called challenger? To get why ChatGPT isn't the threat everyone thinks it is, you have to understand its biggest limitation. You have to see it as an AI with two very different brains.
So, on one hand, it has what we can call structural knowledge. This is everything it learned from its training data. And it's vast, it's incredibly deep, but it's frozen in time. It has a cutoff date. But to answer questions about what's happening right now, today's news, current stock prices, whatever, it needs conjunctural knowledge. And it can only get that by using external tools to go look at the live internet. And that brings us to the absolute key question, the whole point of this. When an AI like ChatGPT, with its brain full of slightly old information, needs to know what happened like 5 minutes ago, where does it have to go to find the answer? And this, right here, is where the whole narrative flips on its head. This is the ultimate plot twist in these so-called search wars. It turns out, this isn't a story about replacement. It's a story of deep, profound, and totally unexpected dependency. Just look at this number. According to data from SEMrush, a staggering 46% of the questions people ask ChatGPT force it to go look for external, real-time information. Let that sink in. For nearly half of what it does, its own brilliant, massive brain isn't enough. It has to go look things up online.
And where's it going to look? Well, let's just talk about sheer scale for a second. Every single day, Google handles about 14 billion searches. ChatGPT, for all its hype, handles about 37.5 million. That means Google is processing 373 times more search volume. If you need to consult an index of the web,
There's really only one place to go.
You can actually measure this relationship with a metric called the Index of Google AI Dependency. What it does is combine the AI's need for fresh information, that 46%, with Google's insane market share. The score you get, 6.69, means the AI's dependency on Google is almost 7 times greater than it would be if the search market were actually competitive.
And that just lays it all out, doesn't it? The paradox? Right there in one sentence. The very competitor that was supposed to shatter Google's dominance is, because of its own limitations, structurally dependent on it. It's constantly sending queries back to the king, reinforcing its position as the center of the web. The AI is becoming Google's single biggest new customer.
So, okay, what does all this mean in the real world? For anyone who creates content online, this changes everything. The rulebook for search engine optimization, for SEO, has basically been torn up and completely rewritten. Think about it. Back in the day, SEO was all about getting human eyeballs on your page. You'd focus on keywords, making sure your site was easy and pleasant for a person to use. But now you have a second and maybe even more important audience, AI agents. You have to optimize your content so that a machine can read it, understand it, and, crucially, trust it as a source of facts.
This means that any modern content strategy really has to do 3 jobs at once. First, you need algorithmic visibility, which means getting your info into those AI-generated answers. Second, you need referential authority, which means getting the AI to actually cite you as a trusted source. And finally, you still need residual capture, which is just grabbing the clicks from the humans who still go to Google directly. So when you put all these pieces together, it becomes pretty clear. This thing that looked like a war, it wasn't one. When you understand the underlying structure, you see something that looks a whole lot more like a coronation. We're watching the creation of a brand new kind of information kingdom.
This whole search war narrative was really just a misunderstanding of what was actually being built. It was never about ChatGPT trying to replace Google's unbelievable index of the web. That would be an almost impossible task. No, it was about creating a fantastic, powerful, conversational new interface to get at the information that's already inside that index.
And that's really the big takeaway here. This AI revolution didn't eliminate the king. What it did was build him a whole new continent, populated by automated agents who all need to use his library to understand their world. It didn't just save the king, it crowned him emperor of a massively expanded kingdom.
And all of this leaves us with one final and really critical question to chew on. In this new world, where AI models are getting their facts about reality by reading Google's index of our human-made web, who, at the end of the day, is ultimately responsible for what counts as the truth?